Hello guys, and it's truly interesting to observe the collapse of Russia's energy export and thus their budget on the example of Lukoil, another big Russian company destroyed by Putin's failed blitzkrieg. After a new round of sanctions from the White House targeted specifically on Rosneft and Lukoil, Lukoil tried to find a solution. And they thought they had one, with Gunvor, an international company ready to buy their assets, but also directly connected to the Kremlin. And what made me super happy and confident in the seriousness of the American attitudes? The fact that Trump said, no, we're not going to give a license to Gunvor because we clearly understand that is a Putin's company, or at least a company seriously influenced by the Kremlin. Thumbs up for that. And in such context, Bulgaria, where one of the biggest Lukoil plants is located, actually supplying 80% of Bulgaria's oil demands, decided to confiscate this plant and then to sell it with no voice given to Lukoil in Russia. This is an example how this monstrous empire can be defeated even if you are a smaller country. But that is the war of the 21st century with totally different attitudes and strategies. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia that has already started, please subscribe and share these videos to make it happen sooner. So let's begin with more updates about Lukoil, a company that was literally cancelled by the Kremlin. Traditionally, Gazprom, Lukoil, Rosneft are symbols of Russia's wealth and now symbols of Russia's poverty. Preparing this video, I was surprised to learn that the head of the board of directors of Lukoil actually fell out of window back in August 2022. I think he predicted something. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think he predicted? But now, after a new round of sanctions, Lukoil experienced a lot of troubles. More and more countries that were actually supporting the Kremlin decided they don't want any economic consequences for their budgets and one by one slowly stop buying this oil. Yes, I'm talking about China and India that promised to help Putin, but once again facing the consequences decided they don't need it that much. Anyway, Lukoil thought they will do it the usual way. They will sell their assets to some companies that are directly connected to the Kremlin or maybe Putin himself, and the problem is solved. But not this time. And by the way, this clearly demonstrates the seriousness of Trump's attitude, or maybe just his business approach. And when Gunvor company was offered as a potential buyer of Lukoil assets in Europe and in other countries outside Russia, it was not difficult to see that it's directly connected to the Kremlin. And in one of his comments, the president of the US said, no, we're not going to give Gunvor a license. Less than 1 hour after this announcement, Gunvor said, we're not that interested in buying Lukoil. This is how Russia can be defeated. A combination with the Ukrainian drone strikes destroying oil industry and a combination of economic sanctions destroying Russian oil industry. And why are we focusing on this oil industry? Because that's literally the only income Russia has as a totally raw resources dependent country, not producing anything. I keep asking for names of products or services, advanced, technological, innovative, that you ever wanted to get from Russia, and you cannot give me none. Some people name Soviet names, Soviet photo cameras, or bicycles, but we're talking about modern Russia things, like something like, I don't know, computers, something like aircraft. They cannot substitute their aircraft, and literally Aeroflot turned into Aeroflop. But let's return back to Lukoil that lost this, threshold that they were using to avoid sanctions or to trick the sanction policy and at least get something. And another very interesting precedent we observed in Bulgaria. Bulgaria is a country that was definitely under influence of the Kremlin in times of the Soviet Union. It was a communist country. They suffered a lot, just as Ukraine did. They do not have burevestniks, oreshniks, they do not have nuclear weapons, but they are able to defeat Russia's interests even on their territory. So after this news became evident that Kandvor won't be able to get the access to Lukoil property in the West, they decided to change their legislation. And this legislation will now allow them to sell one of the largest in Europe Lukoil plants located on the territory of Bulgaria and actually supplying up to 80% of all oil in that country. So the government of Bulgaria will be allowed to sell it without asking for any permissions or support from the side of the headquarters in Russia. So literally Lukoil loses its voice in Bulgaria. The price of the plant is approximately $20 billion. So that is a lot to lose for the Kremlin, but that is a perfect and very logical solution for the government of Bulgaria. What's more interesting, there are a lot of Lukoil enterprises in Romania, and I am 100% sure that right now Romania is studying the experience of Bulgaria and many more to come. The Kremlin is literally stripped from any options to earn money from their bloody oil export. And with constantly dropping prices, with this growing hole in the Russian budget, it's literally the question of months how long they can fake this stability inside Russia. And don't be afraid of that, because that's literally a very natural process that even the Russian oligarchs predict, and we discussed that in my new video on Anna Danilchuk channel. Of course, the Kremlin will keep looking for the ways to export oil, to use some companies in India and in China. But with these options, they lose a lot because they have to offer something that these countries may agree, because they risk, because they have, like, it's way easier to buy oil from other countries, not war criminal, not run by war criminals with no negative consequences. And what Russia does to be able to sell their oil to at least anyone on the planet, they constantly lower these prices. They are losing markets. And this is great because, once again, the collapse of the USSR was triggered by the collapse of oil prices. Everybody knows that in Ukraine. And what's more interesting, everybody knows that in Russia. And they see what's coming when they are standing in those long queues to get some gasoline inside a country that is rich in natural resources but poor in wisdom and economic management, and of course setting their priorities. Being the largest country in the world with a small GDP equal to one of the US states, their priorities should have been internal development, but they've decided to invade a stronger, more developed, economically, socially country and failed. What we observe now is the collapse of the Russian Federation, and you don't have to be afraid of that. Subscribe to know how to prepare for that, how to control this process to make it safe for your countries. Share these videos to spread the truth, because unfortunately not many information comes directly from my part of the world, and it's important for the realistic understanding both of the Ukrainian attitudes and of the Russian mindset. And traditionally, subscribe to other social media platforms: X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Discord. The links in the description, same as the link to my channel Anna Danilchuk, where we have longer weekly discussions. I don't know, a mixture of personal memories, updates, and maybe some philosophy. And of course, check the merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. And you know, we need that. That's important for the defeat of the evil, for the restoration of the international order. And that's needed for many countries, not just Ukraine. And thank you so much for becoming sponsors, patrons of the channel, and buying me coffees. This gives inspiration and more resources to continue the work. Thank you, friends. Slava Ukraini!